Okay, so let's see the BPM part. So this BPM project, okay, the BPM project, so we'll be having, so yeah, so every BPM project will be having, so 3 models. So one is organization model, and the second one is BO model, and the third one is process model. Okay, so these are the 3 models will be part of your BPM project. So organization model, so BO model, and the process model. So BO means business object model. Okay, so these are the 3 types of BPM projects models here. Now you can configure them. Okay, you can configure them as part of your BPM project. Okay, you can configure all these models as part of your BPM project. Okay, you can configure all of them as part of a BPM project, or you can configure them separately. Okay, if you want to have reusability, you can configure them separately. So configure them and deploy them, and then refer these models from your BPM project. Okay, so what exactly the organization model will be having? So organization model, so we'll be having users. Okay, users information, so roles information and permissions information. Okay, so they're nothing but privileges. Okay, now here the user is referred as participant. Okay, so user is referred as participant here. Okay, The user is referred as participant. Now this organization model okay, it is a logical representation of the actual organization model. So in the enterprise, okay, in the enterprise, so which is stored in LDAP server. Okay, so which is stored in LDAP server. At runtime, okay, at runtime you have to bind. Okay, at runtime you have to bind the organization model. Okay, you have to bind the organization model with the LDAP model. So using open space. Okay, using open space, so you'll have to bind your organization model with the LDAP model. Okay. Okay, so which will be displayed in the user work list. Okay, and the user can work on it. Now the beaver model is there. Okay, the data, so which will be used in business process. Okay, so will be modeled as business object. Okay, so to work with business objects or to transfer business objects, you have to use JavaScript. Okay, so you will be using the JavaScript. Okay, so to work with the business objects or to transform business objects, so you will have to use the JavaScript. Okay. Okay, so to create the business objects, okay, to create the business objects, so you have to use business data services, or that's also called as BDS. Okay, so if you want to create business objects, or if you want to transform business objects, so you will be having business data services, or that's called as BDS. You have to use that. Okay. So you will be having two types of BO models. Okay, you'll be having two types of BO models. One you have local, and second one you have global. Okay. So you will be using the global BO model. So you can use this global BO model for case management. Okay, for case management, you can use the global BO model. Okay, and this global BO model is available from the version 3 only. Okay, from version 3 you are having the global BO model. Okay, and the local BO model, so as the name suggests, it's for the normal usage. Okay, so then you have the process model. And whatever it is, you can create the business objects. Okay, the business objects can be created from XML schema. Or from WCL. Or from UML diagrams. Or from database tables. Okay, or you can create them manually. Okay. Okay, so whenever you import the visual file or XML schema, so the BOM will be automatically created. So business object model will be generated. Okay, the business object model will be automatically generated. Then you have the process model. Okay, so each process model will be represented by one XPDL file. Okay, will be represented by XPDL. Okay, so that's called as XML process definition language. Okay, will contain one or more business processes, one or more business services, okay, one or more business services, and one or more page flow services. Okay, so your process models will be having so one or more business processes, one or more business services, and one or more page flow services. A business process. Okay, business process will be modeled. Okay, will be modeled based on BPM 2.0 specification. Okay, will be based on BPM 2.0 specification. And this is there from version 3.1. Okay, the business process will be used to perform process automation, where okay, so this will enable process automation where the information exchange will be seamlessly done between the users as well as users and the systems also. Okay, so that's the main task of the business process. Okay. Okay, so your business process will be having user tasks, service tasks, gateways, and events. Okay, business process will be executed by two engines. So one is process engine. Okay, one is process engine, and the second one is so this is what you call as work manager, and this is what you call as process manager. Okay, so one is called as process manager, and other one is called as work manager. Okay, so work manager will be implemented by will be implemented by BPL for people. Okay, the process manager is implemented by BPL specification. Okay, these two engines together they are referred as process core or process engine, or it's also called as BPM node. Okay. Okay, to test BPM processes, okay, and to access work list, so we need to use open space, or you have to use workspace. Okay, you have to use open space or workspace, and these two will be running on BPM node. Okay, so they will be running on BPM node. Okay. Okay. So now each, the work manager and process manager will be having a number of components, like so business resource management, the work presentation services, and all. So those things we can see from here. Now what is this? Okay, the BPM can be used to deploy the business process management applications. Okay, so the business process management application means they automate business processes or technical processes. So business process means sequence of tasks, so which are to be executed by human users. and technical processes. So to be executed by enterprise applications. Okay, these two together called as process automation. Okay, so using Business Studio, you develop the applications. Okay, so the AMX BPM is, it's a runtime environment for executing BPM applications. You deploy your is deployed to the AMX runtime. So in the demo only I have told you. So the top, at the bottom you'll have the AMX unified runtime. So which is based on OSGA and SCA. And to that your BPM will be deployed. Okay, and once you deploy them, so they will be executed by your AMX BPM application. So this AMX BPM is nothing but BPM node it is. Okay, so you can also deploy multiple BPM systems to the single ActiveMatrix enterprise. So which means you can install multiple BPM nodes also. Okay, so within one runtime you can have multiple BPM runtimes as well. So it provides two web client applications, OpenSpace and Workspace. Okay, so using them you can access your processes which have been deployed. You have AMX administrator. So this is for configuring, monitoring, managing objects in your AMX runtime. And it will also be used for deploying. Okay, so I think I have told you what is enterprise. So within AMX runtime administrator, the enterprise is the topmost. And each enterprise will be having environments, hosts and nodes. And you will be having two environments when you install either service grid or BPM. One, system environment, and other one, it's up to you. If you install grid, you will have development environment. If you install BPM, you will be having BPM environment. And your BPM applications will be hosted in BPM environment. So environments, what they do, they enable you to isolate applications and nodes from one another. And then you have AMX hosts. So I have told you before, so all your nodes will be managed by host. Okay, and the deployment will be actually done by host. Okay, the administrator is only meant for configuring. The actual deployment is handled by host. The deployment will be handled, the resource instances will be installed, so everything is taken care by host only. So host is nothing but it's a software repository that contains application templates. Then you have node. So that is where the applications or fragments will be deployed. Okay, and you can have n number of nodes. Okay, but if you are installing multiple nodes on the same system, it is not of no use for you. But when you are having multiple systems, then maintain multiple nodes. Okay. So if you distribute multiple BPM nodes over different machines, then it will be using database. So you have to optimize your database. So this is the main runtime representation of your BPM. So you'll be having process manager, you'll be having work manager. The process manager once again will be having 3 set of services. Process services you have, calendar services you have, event collector services you have. And the work manager will be having all user related things. The page flow services, work presentation services, directory services, VRMS services, and business services. So these are all part of your work manager. So as I told you, the user related things are handled by work manager, and the process execution is taken care by the process manager. Okay. Now let's say if I specify like this, if my process is like this. Okay, let's say my process is like this. Okay, my process is like this. Now when you run this process, okay, when you run this process, your process will be started by process manager. Okay, process execution will be started by process manager. And the service task also will be executed by process manager. And the gateway also will be executed by the process manager. But when the control comes to user task, when the control comes to user task, so what happens is, so it will call the work manager asynchronously. Okay, it will call the work manager asynchronously, and it will hand over the control to the work manager. And the work manager is the one who is going to execute this user task. Okay, he is the one who is going to execute this user task. So once user task is completed, so he is going to give the control back to the process manager. Okay, he'll give the control back to process manager. And then the process manager once again, so he is going to hand over the control to the second user task. Second user task is there, so that also will be handed over to the work manager. And the work manager will take his own time, and then so once task is completed, so he will give control back to the process manager. So the communication model between the process manager and work manager will be asynchronous with callback. So lots of correlations will be used here. So while handing over the control to the work manager, he will associate one ID. Okay, he will initialize one correlation ID. And when the work manager completes the task, so he is going to set the same correlation ID while sending the control back to the process manager, so that the task will be attached to the same request. Okay, the task will be attached to the same request. So here correlations will be used. So what exactly is correlation? So matching a message or an event. Okay, matching a message or event, so with the correct instance. Okay, with the correct instance is what you call as correlation. So for correlation, correlation will be used to enable communication between the process and work manager. Okay. So the users will be interacting with the process manager and work manager through open space or the workspace. Your open space and workspace is implemented using BPM Web Service API. Okay, is implemented through the BPM Web Service API. Okay, and using what binding you will be communicating with this process manager and work manager using service virtualization binding. So this is the binding, service virtualization binding. And internally, so these process manager components and work manager components, they are nothing but they are SCA components only. They are SCA composites. Okay, they are nothing but SCA composites. And most of these composites are built on the normal things. Java SCA component or Spring SCA component. Okay, or Web SCA component. Okay, they are essentially composites and SCA components only. Okay, and they also will be having services and references. Okay, they also will be having services and references. Okay, so web components, it will provide runtime user interface to AMX BPM. So process manager, so he provides these services. Essentially, it will execute the process services and even collect services you have. So as the name suggests, it is meant for collecting events. Okay. Calendar services. The schedules, the work schedule will be managed using calendar services. Okay. And then you have work manager. So that deals with the human services management. You have business resource management services. So which are responsible for distributing and managing the work. Okay, distributing and managing the work. You have directory services. So just now I had discussed about organization model. And whenever you perform a task, so it's going to check whether that user is having correct permission or not. So all the authentication or authorization services against LDAP is taken care by the directory services. Then you have work presentation services. Okay, so its task is to perform actions on work item. So when the users perform, when a user performs some action on work item. Okay, so here work item means the task which is delivered to the user. Okay, task which is delivered to the user. So that's what you call as work item. Okay, so when the user gets work item, so how to handle that work item and how to manage that work item is taken care by the work presentation service. Okay, then you have page flow services. So page flow service, stateless services there. Okay, page flow services are stateless services. So page flow services allows you to design interactive, okay, interactive human interactive forms. Okay, page flow allows you to design interactive forms. Okay, and they will be handled by the page flows. Then you have business services. The business service is interface to your process application or business process. So generally from open space, you cannot invoke a business process directly. Okay, from open space, you cannot invoke the business process directly. So if you want to call business process from the workspace, you have to generate a business service. Okay, you have to generate business service. So BPM node, it's a combination of your process manager and work manager. And if you want to install, your BPM environment in fault tolerance, or you want to have, cluster, so this is how you need to design. So you'll have to make sure that all your BPM nodes are connected to only one single database. Okay, so that it's a normal thing it is. So it's like in EMS also. Okay, in EMS active passive fault tolerant, there also you have shared state. So here the shared state is BPM database. And this is your one grid it is. And this is your another grid, another system it is. Okay, so when you have this kind of setup, so these advantages you will have. So load balancing you will be having, and fault tolerant high availability you will have. Okay, now you have to load balance the things at multiple levels. You have to load balance, you have to have proper, so high availability of your database. You have to make sure that your database is always online. Okay, your database is always online. If your database is unavailable, your entire BPM runtime also will be considered as off, because it cannot process any requests. So each and every step of your process information will be stored into database. Okay, so that's why if your database is down, you cannot do any task. So you'll have to always make sure that your database is always online. And you also have to redirect the clients to multiple environments. Okay, you have to redirect the clients either to here or here. Okay, for load balance purpose, so you have to redirect clients to either this or either to this system. So the front end to your BPM, it is pure web based it is, which means it is completely HTTP based. So HTTP doesn't support load balancing. So that's why you have to use external load balancers. So using this external load balancers, the user sessions can be load balanced. Okay, using external load balancers, user sessions will be load balanced. Load balancing user sessions also most vital. Okay, that is also most important for you. So for them you have to use external load balancers, like you have HP load balancer is there, so that you have to use, or some any other one that you have. Okay, so that's how the user request will be shared between the servers. Okay. So service virtualization capable is provided by BPM runtime. It will manage and route traffic between the nodes as and when they are required. Okay, if the client is sending requests, so from the web component which is on node 1, so it's not mandatory that is handled by the process manager which is running in that node. So it may be done by the process manager on node B also. Because when you say load balance here, it is similar to this one. It is round robin. Okay, it will be round robin. So that's why either this will be executing the request or this will be executing the request. No matter. So from whichever front end of the BPM node the request is coming from. Okay. So if one node fails, so it doesn't matter. The second node will start executing requests. Okay, the second node will start executing requests. But the thing that here is before your request is completed. Okay, before your request is completed, if the failure happens, if the cluster failure, if the node failure happens, your request will be rolled back. Okay, request will be rolled back because the entire BPM system and its functionality will be running in transaction mode. Okay, all the BPM operations will be running in transaction mode. So that's why if the node is failed before your request is processed, so don't expect that your request is processed by some other node. Okay, your half of the request is processed by another node. So your entire request will be rolled back. So you have to restart your request once again. It is not like BW. BW is essentially, it is a stateless server it is. So that's why using checkpoints and using multi-node deployments, if one BW engine crashes, the rest of the task can be completed by second BW engine. But whereas BPM, it is fully stateful it is. So if the request is, if the system crash happens, before the request is completed, your transaction will be rolled back. Okay. So you have to initiate the transaction once again. Okay. The clients, so which are nothing but open space and workspace, so they communicate with the web component logical node. Okay, so when your application dies, the clients will be automatically logged off. So page flows are stateless process and the data will be lost in those page flow services. And the people who are logged into, they have to relog in once again. So to alleviate this problem, so use the load balancer. Okay, use the load balancer. So it will take care of routing the traffic between your nodes. Okay. So when you want to customize, okay, when you want to customize the ActiveMatrix BPM, now, so you want to create your own interface to your ActiveMatrix applications. Okay, you want to create your own interfaces to your ActiveMatrix applications, or you want to create your own forms for your business process applications. Okay, so any kind of external customization, so you require the BPM API. Okay, you require BPM API. So you have the APIs available in 3 formats. So you can use REST API. So when you implement REST API, you can easily create mobile based applications. Okay, mobile applications you can easily create. And it also provides the Java service connector. So if you want to create thick lines, so use the Java service connector. And similarly, so SOAP based lines you want to create, you can use web service API. Okay, so 3 options are there for creating customized applications for your AMX BPM. So one is REST API, web service API, and Java service connector API. Okay. Now, so generally the BPM applications, okay, generally BPM applications will not be, it's very difficult for external invocation of your BPM business processes. Okay, it's not very easy to invoke your business processes earlier. But whereas now, since this AMX BPM is completely based on web services, it's completely based on web services, you can provide web service, you can convert your business process into a web service. Okay, you can convert a business process into a web service. So providing web service interface for your business process is what you call as process as service, or that's what you call as PaaS. Okay, so AMX applications, they conform to SOA. So BPM applications can expose their functionality as set of services. The advantage of service is what? Web services, reusability, location independence, protocol transparency, interoperability. Okay, these are the advantages of your web services. So all those advantages your BPM process also will be having. Okay, and you can enable the communication between business processes. You can make one process as provider and one process as client. Okay, so for whenever you want to have external interactions, so always convert your process into service. Okay. Now this BPM, it completely follows the workflow patterns. Okay, it will completely follows workflow patterns. So they are defined by this open group. Okay, so this workflow pattern group, they defines so what all patterns that are supposed to be supported by these BPM applications. So what are the control patterns, resource patterns, so everything will be defined by them. And this AMX BPM so implements and everything from this open workflow patterns group. So resource control and data workflow patterns we have. So there you can see them. Okay, all these patterns it will implement. So around 60 or 70 patterns are there. It implements all those patterns. And it is fully based on model driven architecture. So just now we have discussed process model, organization model. Okay, the logical representation of your actual organization. So business object model, business data, and you can configure the user interface, representation of how a user task in a process is displayed at runtime. So how you want to display the user task to the user task at runtime is taken care by this user interface. And then you have business service. It is a special version of page flow process is to provide interactive process starter for open space or workspace user. So you think the business service has a process starter. Okay, you think the business service has a process starter for the open space users. So calendars also you will be having here. Okay, you can define what are the holidays and what all you have, working hours, working days, everything you can define using the system calendars. There you can see. So at design time in the Business Studio, you will create the process. Okay, BPM process you will create. So as I told you, the BPM process will be part of your XPDL. And your XPDL, so during deployment, will be converted into BPL process. And that will be executed by the BPL engine. Okay, that will be executed by your BPL engine. So how do you design your process? Using BPMN. So the current release of Business Studio supports the BPMN version 2.0. Okay. So XPDL is what you call as process definition language it is. It's an interchange file it is. Whatever you design will be stored into XPDL. Okay, and your process deployment is represented by BPL. Okay, the normal BPL, it's only defined how services can be orchestrated into in order to provide the high-level services. And the problem with the BPL is it is only meant for straight-through processing. But the normal BPL is not meant for to define user task. So that's why to implement user task. Okay, to implement user task, they will be using one another specification from BPL, that's what you call as BPL for people. Okay, so these are the data types they support. The normal simple types or the objects of class types also will be supported. So if you want to create process as a service, okay, if you want to develop process as a service, so two types of models we have. So one is, so automatically it will create the WSDL file for your business process. And the second one is, based on WSDL file, you can create the process. Okay, based on WSDL file, you can create the process. So whichever option you want, you can go for contract last or contract first. So this is what you call as top down or bottom up. Okay. So with this background, so tomorrow we'll develop one application. Okay. And then we'll see so how exactly you will develop the BPM applications. Okay. Okay, Sudhakar. So see you tomorrow.